I was recently diagnosed with manic depression and an anxiety disorder. I thought I was an outcast, 14 years old and already an emotionless wreck. Well, not entirely emotionless though. I had several episodes of severe depression, mostly late at night, when there was nothing to keep my mind busy with. I often felt afraid, helpless, like something was out to get me. Of course, when I came back to my senses, I knew there was nothing to be afraid of since my parents were downstairs watching TV or something. This continued throughout the years. I turned 18 and I was on heavy medication, but for some reason it wasn't entirely working, so I still had a couple of nightly episodes. One day, both of my parents decided to take a weekend for themselves. I didn't have an episode for a couple of months, so they were pretty comfortable to leave me alone for the weekend. They would leave Friday night and come back on Sunday, and being an only child, you can imagine I was quite nervous at the thought of being alone for 3 days straight. My mum told me to call her whenever I felt it was needed, even if it was 3 in the morning. The neighbours were home too, and they were like a third set of grandparents to me. They offered to cook me dinner in the weekends, but I had already prepped some meals prior, so there was no need to. It was Friday night, and the door slammed shut. My parents were gone for the weekend. A mix of excitement and anxiousness was filling my body. I had the freedom to stay up all night while playing some games and watching movies. But knowing I was alone for the whole weekend, it was still giving me a stressed out feeling from within. It was 1 a.m. and I was beginning to feel tired. I decided to turn off my computer and call it a day. Normally, I read before going to sleep, but I was too tired, and I fell asleep almost instantly after pulling the blanket over my body. Somewhere between 3 and 4 a.m., I woke up to some scratching at the door downstairs. There are lots of bars and cafes in the area, and since it was a Friday night, lots of drunk young men were strolling through the street and doing whatever drunk people do, I guess. I didn't think anything of it and tried to go back to sleep. The scratching increased over the following hours, and I was really getting annoyed about it. I opened my window and shouted that I was trying to sleep. I saw something sprinting away in the woods in front of my house, but it wasn't human exactly. I couldn't see very well in the dark, but I thought I saw something, like a dog or maybe a big cat, run away, which was probably a good explanation for the scratching on my door. I closed my window and jumped back into bed. I stared at the ceiling for a good while before falling back asleep once again. Every once in a while, I wake up with a splitting headache. That morning was one of those times. I slowly got out of bed and placed my feet on the cold floor. I got dressed and was heading downstairs to take some aspirin. After my morning routine, I decided to check out the damage on the door. I opened the door and once I realized what I saw, it was causing a shiver down my spine. Blood-stained scratches were covering the door. The scratch marks were too far apart to be caused by an animal. That means that the thing that I saw running away in the middle of the night couldn't have been a dog. I think it was human, or at least something similar. How vague that may sound. I looked around and even though the weather report said it was going to be sunny, everywhere I looked, there was a thick layer of mist limiting my view to at least 50 meters or less. I was seriously creeped out and slammed the door shut behind me. I decided to lock myself up in my room and tried to calm down. I tried to turn on the small tube television in my room, but all it showed was static on every channel. At that moment, I started having a panic attack and after a few moments, I just ended up passing out on the floor. When I awoke, it was dark again. The clock on the wall still showed from last night, 3:36 a.m. No matter how long I looked at it, the hands just didn't move. I believe that the clock stopped ticking when the scratching began. Too big of a coincidence that the batteries quit right when someone, or something, started ravaging the front door. I looked out of my window and the thick layer of mist, it wasn't gone yet. I felt like I was stuck in a bad dream, unable to wake up. I just crawled up into a corner and waited for what seemed like an eternity. The scratching started again, but this time it was louder, presumably coming from downstairs. I armed myself with a silly little pocket knife. I got it from my dad a couple of years ago, but the blade was dull and the wooden handle was starting to come off. Certainly better than nothing, though. The scratching continued for hours on end. I had countless panic attacks, but somehow got through the whole ordeal. The following morning, the same scratches were now also on the door in the hallway, meaning that whatever made those was now inside of my house. I started to gag. The stress causing all of this made me throw up what little was left in my stomach. I haven't eaten since I discovered the scratches on the front door. No matter how hard I try, I just can't. Luckily, today's the day my parents will come home. I just hope this is all over soon. It turned 3:36 again. So I locked myself up in the basement and that thing is still scratching on the basement door. My parents didn't come home today, and I tried to call them, but I don't have any service. It seems like that everything that works on a power source is dead. The TV, my phone. It feels like I'm in a different world. The noise is unbearable. Something is out to get me, and whatever it is, at this rate, is going to succeed. I've got until tomorrow night to find a solution for all this, or I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to tell this tale. I think I'm stuck in this hellhole, and if anyone hears this, please send help.